Bartenders, what drink order instantly tells you this person is going through something? Had a lady who was having dinner with her teenage son. She kept leaving to go to the bathroom where she'd sneakily order a glass of red wine to chug before she went back to the table. Point is, I don't think there's a drink that shows someone is going through it. It's how they drink. Next story. 25 years ago, we had a regular called Mr. Martini. He would come in around 5 o'clock on a weekday and just order a martini and give off the please don't talk to me vibe. He would park himself in front of the video game machine at the end of the bar and pump a few quarters in and order 2 to 4 martinis and have them all gone in an hour. Also, he was an amazing tipper. If he ever came in and somebody else was in his spot, I would comp that person a drink just to go away for a little bit. He never spoke, never bothered anybody, and was an object of fascination. One day I was flipping through the yellow pages, and I saw a photo advertisement for a bankruptcy lawyer, and there was Mr. Martini. He was a bankruptcy lawyer who would unwind by getting blitzed at a local dive bar. I can imagine bankruptcy lawyer is a stressful job, especially if you have any empathy for people. So Mr. Martini, keep on doing you. It's important work out there. You're saving people's lives, really. You're allowed a few martinis and some video game time. Hell yeah, brother. Next story. Working in a cocktail bar, a guy comes in and asks for the cocktail with the most amount of alcohol for the least amount of money. Speaking a short time later, he told me his mother had just died. I became slightly looser with my pours when serving him. He was a nice guy with absolutely no drama. Next story. Worked in a bar years ago. This middle-aged man and his wife would come in every Thursday night. They never smiled or laughed. His wife would sit around the corner out of sight of the bar whilst the man would come up to the bar and order the drinks. 1 beer, 1 glass of wine, and a shot of whiskey. The whiskey he would down in one whilst the wine was being poured, then take the other 2 remaining drinks around the corner to his wife. Every time he got another drink, he would repeat this. If his wife came with him or sat inside of the bar, he would never order the whiskey. They would only stay an hour or so, and I never saw him in the bar alone or with anyone else. I often think of that man and wonder what was going on in his head. Next story. I used to work in an absolute dog crap awful pub/pokies venue in the outer suburbs of Melbourne. Had this one lady who was a regular, older lady, rough as guts bogan. Her order was a double gin neat and a packet of salt and vinegar chips. She'd sit at the bar and dunk the chips in the drink. I feel like anyone doing that has a serious issue. Next story. Long ago, when I was a bartender, a late 30s, early 40s woman came in, ordered 4 shots of whiskey along with whatever beer we had that was our strongest. Downed it in an hour or 2. Did this twice a week for a long time. Never seemed to be drunk. I was talking to her and found out her mother, father, sister, husband, and 2 kids all died together in a head-on car crash. Never have I felt worse for a customer. Next story. I worked at a bar 10 years ago and had a regular that would come in every other day or so. He would order a double single malt old-fashioned and then drink 4 to 7 20-ounce dunkels. He would drink all of them within 1 to 2 hours, all while remaining seemingly sober. He was a pretty average-sized dude in his mid-30s who looked like he took care of himself. Never caused any problems, always tipped well, and was well liked by the staff. He never protested it if we told him we felt like he'd had too much, and always said he would call an Uber if we didn't want him to drive. But he always seemed completely fine and lucid. He randomly stopped coming in one day. I moved on career-wise, but apparently he started coming back in almost 3 years later and would only get 2 beers before leaving. Told my old manager he had just moved to the area by himself and was lonely, but had since made friends and even gotten married. I hope he's doing well. He was a cool guy. Next story. I have a friend that worked at the liquor store. They had a customer that came in and bought a 500 milliliter bottle of vodka every day. When it was suggested that he buy a bigger bottle because it was cheaper, he replied he wouldn't allow himself to buy any larger bottles because he wouldn't be able to stop himself until the bottle was empty. Patronacy. It was San Francisco, probably 2011-ish. I work at one of the only hip-hop nightclubs in San Francisco. This dude comes in and he orders 10 Patronacies. I mean, I start laughing. I'm buzzed. We were allowed to drink. I say, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going, but what's a Patronacy? Man, you don't know? That's where you put Patron and Hennessy in the same cup. And you want 10 of those? He looks around. Nah, give me 20. I'm like, dude, you gotta pay up front. He said, I don't give a crap. I'm rich. He pays, passes out 20 of these drinks to strangers, tips well, and leaves. I mentioned this to a friend a few days later, describe him, and he goes, whoa, wait, black dude, dreads, built like he would beat your butt? Yeah, you know him? Yeah, that's Marshawn Lynch, running back for the Seahawks. That's his drink. Okay, that's what I get for not reading ahead. Did that voice sound like a black dude necessarily? No. There was definitely a vibe to the voice I put out, and it wasn't that. So sorry, Marshawn. Was not intentional. But also, still a better alternative than me trying to do a, yeah. Anyway, next story. I'm not a bartender, but I once rolled up to an airport bar after a bunch of turbulence and no sleep and asked for a whiskey rocks. The bartender could read it on my body language and offered a double, to which I agreed, and downed in 10 seconds. He offered yet another double, but one was enough for me. My journey wasn't over yet. Next story. A bar I used to frequent had what they called the working man's special. It was $3.99 for one draft PBR, one shot of Jim Beam, and one unfiltered Camel cigarette. There were many nights I would look around and several regulars would all have their cigarettes lined up in front of them, sometimes dozens. Next story. I'd been away from my homeland for a few years. When I got back, I went to the bar and I asked for a double vodka and lemonade. The bartender looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Are you sure?" I politely said yes and thought maybe he thought it was an odd combo. Nope, doubles aren't a thing in my homeland because a regular drink is around 100 to 150 milliliters as it's free poured. So the man poured me an entire glass full of vodka and just put a glass of lemonade next to it. Can only imagine he thought I was going through some stuff. Next story. I don't drink anymore, and I haven't since 2023. But in 2023, I was going through a rough patch for reasons that I'm not going to disclose. There's a dive bar probably 5-ish minutes from my house. I would go in every Saturday and start with 5 shots of tequila and 2 Moscow mules. One day, the bartender sat down and just said, "No." Then tried to get me to talk to her. Turns out the head cook in the back knew me from a bank I'd worked at like 10 years prior and noticed it was happening. Long story short, that probably saved my life. Haven't had a drink since Memorial Day 2023. Next story. My first bartending gig was a Tex-Mex restaurant at 2 major intersecting highways. It was always busy for happy hour. One day I see a guy in a minivan park right by the door, come in and order a double tall reposado. I pour it, tell him the cost, and he hands me a $50 bill, and I turn around and ring it up and get him change. Maybe 20 seconds max. I turn back around. All of my regulars look shocked. The glass is empty, and he's getting outside back in his minivan. One of my regulars said, "That guy's got some issues he's on his way home to." Next story. This might get buried, but I have to write it. When my mother passed away a few years ago, my distant dad invited me to have a drink with him at some bar that he frequented called Legion something. I think it's a vet bar, I don't know. My mom and my dad were never married, and he wasn't in my life but once or twice a year. Anyway, I agreed to meet up, and when I got there, the bartender, older lady, probably 50s, told me she was sorry to hear about my mom's passing. I guess she heard of my dad's infatuation and grief of splitting with my mom over the years. She proceeded to tell me about her sister who had stage 4 cancer, and her going through the pain of watching her cease slowly. She told me that the nurse taking care of her sister had this marble that was passed on her when her mother died. The nurse gave it to her just before her sister died and said, "You hold on to this until you find the right person to share your story and pass on the advice that loved ones never leave us. They will always be remembered." She'd been holding on to it for 10 plus years, so she says, and decided I was the one to pass it on to. To this day, the marble sits with my mother's ashes and the memory of that bartender, and her kindness will not only be remembered, but passed on one day. I'll never forget her. Next story. Had a guy who would come in once a week, drink 8 pints of Amstel in about 6 hours while working on his laptop. He'd always ask to use the work phone to call his office and tell them he'd be there too late to travel back, so he'd be expensing a hotel. This was every single week. One day, he came in, no laptop, and sank 12 pints in only a few hours. Asked him if it was all okay. Turns out he was a British member of Parliament and had just lost his seat that day. He ended up buying a bottle of Dom Perignon and sitting by the fountain in the public square, drinking it from the bottle. I want to know what happened. Why did this dude lose his seat in Parliament? Like, was there an election and he just didn't win? Or was it something more, I don't know, exciting than that? Drinking from an open bottle in the public square? I would throw my wager on something more exciting. Next story. Chicago handshake. You see an old guy with a can of Old Style and a shot of Malort? Give him some space. Conversely, if you see a young guy with the same thing, wish him a happy birthday and point out the nearest toilet. Next story. I worked as a barback/bouncer/busser at this local pub when I was in university. I remember one evening in the middle of the week, fairly quiet night, supper crowd had left, this cab pulls up outside and stops. Middle-aged guy in businessy attire, looks like he just got off work, shares words with the cabbie as he's getting out, obviously asking him to wait, practically runs into the pub and up to the bar, orders a beer and a shot of rye, downs both absurdly fast, leaves cash on the bar, and runs back to the cab. I had so many questions, but I can only assume that he was having an incredibly crappy day. Next story. Used to work at a pub with a massive beer garden that lived off the summer months and was pretty dead through the winter. You'd have your 2 or 3 regulars, but the real leg up for the business on rainy days were the young mums. They'd rock up in 2s and 3s with their buggies and shopping bags right around noon and order triple vodka sodas. We'd then say it's illegal to serve triples, so they changed the order to doubles plus a shot. They'd repeat the round and would be off on their jolly way by 2 p.m. Boredom is a hell of a drug. Next story. Everyone saying Long Island has never been behind a bar. Just because it has multiple spirits in it doesn't mean it's more alcoholic. 100 milliliters of one spirit is equal to 20 milliliters of 5 different ones. Y'all have been tricked by TV. Next story. Double whiskey neat. No ice, no chaser, ordered in silence while staring at the wall. Followed by, keep 'em coming. After the first one disappears in 30 seconds, you can practically see the breakup, divorce, or job loss replaying in their eyes. I just pour quietly and add extra napkins. Next story. Once I was working as a waiter, I had 2 guests come in 15 minutes before their reservation. The gentleman told me that he was going to get the check, and that every time he ordered a Sprite, I was to bring him a double tall vodka soda, because he didn't want to disrespect the client who didn't drink. Next story. Vodka with a couple limes squeezed in and soda water or just flat water. Double. Drank several down like it was just water, and everyone thought it was water with a lime in it. It was a female customer who'd get drunk and cry every single time. Next story. I went to a bar one day having severe anxiety about some issues I was dealing with. I ordered a shot of Rumpelminze, something that rubbed off on me from my server days. When I paid out, the bartender says, I hope you get past whatever you're dealing with. I guess after you see so many faces and so many drinks with those faces, you can just call it out. Okay, but that would be really funny if you weren't dealing with anything. Like, you're just sitting there like, this is my favorite drink. Oh boy, I'm so excited. And the bartender thinks you're having the worst day of your life. Next story. Sat in an airport bar at 10 a.m. with a giant Bloody Mary. Felt like such a rebel. Guy comes up next to me and orders a double whiskey and slams it. He orders another, which he also slams. Pays up, runs off. I look at the bartender, he shrugs and walks away. Next story. A guy comes into a bar and orders 6 shots of tequila, then starts working on them. The bartender asks, what's up? He replies, first BJ. The bartender congratulates him and offers to buy him another. He says, no thanks. If 6 shots doesn't get the taste out of my mouth, the 7th won't either. Next story. I bartend at a semi-corporate bar, and the real tell is less about the drink and more about how it's asked for. Let me get a Long Island is going to be someone looking to get drunk quick, but what drink y'all got with the most liquor is usually indicative of somebody who's about to crash the hell out. Most of the time, the people I've served that I've confirmed are going through it are drinking at a reasonable pace, but for hours. Sometimes a full day straight. Next story. There was a place in Vegas that had a shot called the Swamp Ass, and it was poured from the tray where all the overflow from bartending goes in. Cost like $1 at the time. Anyone who was willing to do that had to be in a bad place somehow. Next story. It's not a certain drink. It's how it's drank. I'm a pretty bad alcoholic, and when I'm going through a really, really rough patch, I either hole up in my apartment and just binge, or if I have to be around others, I sneak stuff constantly. It's a nightmare. Endless withdrawal and trying to medicate yourself because you're truly going through biological havoc, but no one freaking cares, and you don't have time to detox. So you have to keep feeding yourself the poison and the medicine at the same time to make it to the next lily pad. Next story. I never found it was what they ordered, it's how they ordered it. Not uncommon for people to get a large order for a table, but wanting a shot up front before taking the drinks to their table. Their voice, their attitude, their body language in general tells a lot as well. It's not hard to pick out someone who's not in a happy mind space or going through something in general and just wants a glass of something strong to forget about it. Though there are people who are great at hiding it, after a couple of drinks it will always start to show. One I frequently saw across people was ordering them single orders of something strong, whiskey, rum, etc., and after a second or third order asking, just make it a double. Next story. Bartended for 10 years, busy Denver bars, Vegas nightclubs, and was a nightclub host for a while. Haven't been in the mix for 11 years now. Maybe not quite what you're looking for, but my most interesting moments. Served a disabled guy a few times, no hands or legs. Drank with a straw, and I held him while he peed. He just wanted to connect and feel like life wasn't crappy. Worked at biggest gay club in Vegas. I'm straight and married, whatever, who cares? Disfigured woman came in, treated her like anyone else, but spent all my comp money for free drinks for her and she loosened up. Danced the night away and ended up in a dance circle with her and her new friends, and she'll remember this genuine moment of collective happiness. Still lives in my head. Some of my favorite memories. People being truly free for a moment. Next story. I had a 10-second regular once. He'd stop in on his way home from work, sit at the bar, order a bourbon neat and Rumpelmann's shot with a lemon wedge, and he would drink the bourbon as a shot, then take the Rumpelmann's shot and bite the lemon afterwards. Pay, tip $5, and he's gone. He claimed his wife can't smell the bourbon shot if his breath smells like mint. Says she thinks he doesn't drink anymore. I'd see him walking up and get his order ready, 3 to 5 days a week at the same time. I left the job years ago, but here he still has the same schedule. Something about this one is particularly sad to me. Like, just the conscious effort that he is hiding it from his wife is not good, man. I don't know. I hope he finds a happier place where he doesn't need to do this every single day. Seems unsustainable to me. Next story. Was working at a restaurant near a harbor, so had a lot of rich people coming in with trash from their boat or miscellaneous drinks. This one guy starts coming in with a giant water bottle sitting at the bar and bickering. It's because we don't have the glassware he likes. Every time. After he had had maybe a drink or two, he seemed wasted, which was weird. Apparently his wife had died a year earlier and he was just kind of living on his yacht because he didn't like his house anymore. One day he stops coming in. Turns out my stepmom, who's an ICU nurse, admitted him the night before with alcohol poisoning. Turns out the water bottle he was bringing in each time, the one I threw away once because he left it and then came back an hour later freaking out where it was pure vodka. He was a bit of a jerk, but we let him come in because we felt so bad for him. He stopped coming in though. Next story. I would say the volume they use to order the drink will tell you a lot more than what they actually order. Usually people who are having a rough go at it don't put out much energy at all, whereas most people put out a little more energy than usual when at a bar. Even if someone is exhausted, there will be at least a little pep in their step if it was a good day. They might be a little sluggish, but you'll see them put energy out into the room. If someone isn't putting energy out there, they're concentrating on their drink more than anything else, and they are not going to have a happy story to tell. Next story. My wife is a bartender. At an event that had just opened for the night, a guy walks up and says, "Double shot of bourbon," puts it away and says, "One more double." She obliges. He says, "One more double," and looks him over. "You got a DD tonight?" Calls the driver up to the bar, confirms that he's the drink consumer's DD, and tells me when she gets home, "No one puts away that much bourbon that fast, unless they have issues." Next story. Bartender of more than a decade. The answer is copious vodka waters, or any surreptitious ordering. For example, pretending to use the bathroom to order bar side when sitting at a table. Long Island iced teas have less alcohol in them than a Manhattan, Negroni, etc. in Canada, and are not the drink of choice for anyone actually problematic. Ordering warm double shots is also questionable on matters of taste. Next story. I'm not a bartender, I was the customer. I work in fly-in, fly-out mining, meaning I spend 14 days in a camp working, then I get 14 days off at home. One time, I just finished a particularly rough rotation. Everything that could go wrong did, including the weather stranding us in camp for 3 extra days. So after we landed in town, it was too late for me to catch a flight home, so I got a hotel, went to the hotel bar, and without even looking at a menu, I asked the waitress for 3 old-fashioned and 2 orders of tacos. I downed the first and second drinks and handed the glasses back as soon as she brought them, and I sipped the third while waiting for my food. Next story. I was a bartender, but the worst I ever saw wasn't even at a bar. Went to a buddy's for New Year's, and he was making himself reverse Jaeger bombs. Yeah, that's right, pint of Jaeger with a shot of Red Bull. He kind of righted ship, but I would still qualify him as an above-average drinker. Next story. Former bartender at a fancy county club. I had an uber-wealthy matriarch type who'd order nothing but double vodka rocks, and multiple of them every night they came in. She had a crazy high tolerance, but when she started to get sauced, she would begin to look really sad and lament to me about the disappointments in her life. Next story. People coming in trying their best to hold their crap together to order a drink and then immediately pass out when they're served. People are crazy like that. We caught most people, but one girl was a regular around the circuit near us and she would fool everyone. You literally could not tell until after she was served. Honestly, was impressed. Next story. A little off topic, but in high school I worked at Wendy's and there was a guy who ordered a triple hamburger plain every Saturday at 11 a.m. One day a coworker and I were pondering what it tasted like, so we made one for ourselves, and I could only do 1 bite. Look man, that guy was going to Wendy's with a damn mission, and he did it. He wanted sustenance. Well, more specifically, a plain triple hamburger. And he got it. The power of customization. Next story. I used to have a couple that would come in and sit at the bar with me pretty regularly. They never drank, only had club sodas, but tipped very well to make up for it, and were just overall lovely to us. Well, he started coming in alone, and now drinks multiple vodka and clubs, and I don't dare ask about her. So it's not necessarily the drink, but the behaviors around them. Next story. It's not really about the drink itself, but how they're drinking it. I bartend and have a regular that went from having a beer or two when she would come in to shooting Rumple back to back. She revealed her grandpa and grandma died within months of each other. Just a couple weeks after that, found out her mom had lung cancer that had metastasized. She hurriedly tried to plan her wedding to have her mom be there, and her mom died on Christmas Day, a week before her wedding. Her only aunt on her mom's side died months after that in a car accident. At 27, she's the oldest woman in her family. I feel so bad for her. Next story. My buddies would go to our local hangouts and order pitchers of rum and coke. Had to explain to the bartenders that were new and didn't know us, it's gonna save you a lot of time and work. If 4 or more of us went out, we ordered one every 6 minutes. Next story. Not a bartender, but recently a friend of a friend was out with us while we played pool, and she ordered, I think, a double shot of Rumpelmans. She offered us a taste, and it tasted to me like schnapps on the verge of moonshine. A sip burned like hell. She then proceeded to down the whole thing. My eyes widened, and I was like, what the Then she says, "Oh, you've never seen me on Rumple Mints before?" Like it's some damn party trick. Keep in mind, she's the kind of chick who is not shy at all about being the whole problem on any night given. My friend had a hell of a time getting her back to her house and out of his car. Next story. Moved across the country to be with my now ex. We split. Messy breakup, the whole shebang. Became a regular at the local here. The moment I started realizing I didn't have to say anything anymore and the lady behind the bar would just hand me a new one or started pouring the moment I walked in, was the moment I realized I may have screwed up somewhere. Triple whiskey, cheapest, and usually about 10 to 15 in 3 or so hours. Never caused a fuss. But damn, how I didn't die from alcohol poisoning over time is insane to me considering I'm not a big dude. 5'7" and 160-ish pounds. Next story. I had a few customers come in with the shakes over the course of me bartending for almost a decade, and I only ever encountered this on day shifts. They would barely speak, pound whatever drinks they ordered. From the 2 I remember clearly, one was beer and one was neat double vodka shots until the shaking stopped, and then be on their way. Bartending weighed heavy on my soul at the end. Too many regulars, damn good people too, lost to that poison. And at times, I was the one providing them with the same poison that would eventually take their lives. Next story. Late 90s, downtown Seattle. Restaurant that sounds like Mild Ginger when it was still down on Western. 10:45 a.m. on a sunny Wednesday. I'm cutting fruit and squeezing juices for the day. Older, grizzled man walks in the front door straight to the end of the bar. Hostess isn't around. Morning, sir. We're not quite open yet, but I'd be happy to grab you something if you're waiting for your party. Give me a gin and tonic. Neat. Just to make sure we're on the same page, you want a gin and tonic with no ice? Goddamn ice hurts my teeth. Coming right up. I teed him up pretty tough, leaning pretty hard on the bottle. He drank 3 before 11 when we opened and just walked out into the day. I think about it often. Next story. I remember back in the day, I no longer work in a bar, we had a really friendly man who would come in and drink lager with shots of vodka every day. About 6 shots and 3 lagers. He'd stay for 4 hours at a time. Very generous with tips and liked to chat. One day he opened up that he lost his son a few years ago. I think this was his reason for drinking. It was his way to cope. It's incredibly sad, and I often think of him and how he's doing. I really hope things improved for him, but sadly it would take a lot of help and a miracle for this to happen. Next story. In my early 20s, I was working in a small family-owned hotel/wedding venue place. One night, the owner's wife came down from one of the rooms in a bathrobe and looked spooked that I was the only one behind the bar. After a few minutes, the regular bartender walked around the corner and quickly pulled a homewrecker of Sky vodka off the bar and handed it to her. She shuffled away, clutching the bottle. That was a bummer to watch. Next story. Anything cheap and nasty, when they feel like they don't deserve a nice drink. Double shot of your cheapest spirit, and they just order it again and again. Most of the regulars were depressed and lonely, and eventually we became their friends. Next story. When I was a bartender and an alcoholic, my order that I would steal from the bar in one of the security camera blind spots was a rocks glass filled to the brim with Fernet Branca. The minty scent would mask the alcohol on my breath. At this bar, we had a drink called the King's Cup, and my fellow bartender and I, we were both going through some crap at the time, would each do the rocks glass of Fernet, down it in one, and we called it the Sorrow Cup. I quit the industry 7 years ago and was sober for the first 5 of those years. Recently, I tried reintroducing alcohol into my life and have been successful over the last couple of years, sticking to about 1 or 2 beers a month. Anything stronger than beer makes me queasy, and drinking more than 1 beer at a time makes me even queasier. If you're a recovering alcoholic, do not go back. I'm very lucky I have a strong accountability support network. Next story. Plain beers. I work at a nightclub in a hotel lobby. It's in the basement, and it's one of the few clubs in the city that is allowed to stay open beyond 5 a.m. Hotel guests usually order a combination of shots and ask for what cocktails I can make. The cheapest mixed drinks are a highball, Paloma, Moscow Mule, etc. Then margaritas or anything that requires a good whiskey to taste good, like a Woodford Reserve for whiskey sours, are a little bit more than that. Our draft beer's also not really that good. Mind you, the hotel isn't in the city center, and there are many other clubs in more popular areas of town that have better programming. The hotel has a selection of resident DJs and sometimes smaller events like pop contests and live bands. Our programming relies on local artists/organizations mostly. A lot of the individuals who come around are in some way related to the hotel, either be it the artist residency program, the artist studios, or friend groups who know the place and think it's chill and enjoy that kind of vibe. People who aren't students are more likely to have a variety selection, while students order beers and shots. Now, when I see single males coming in who come through, sometimes on incredible amounts of drugs, usually just order a plain draft beer since it's the cheapest thing on the menu. They fiddle around on their phones and look at the menu, double-check their phones, and hesitate to take the drink. It's not a super high-end club, but it is community-esque. When a single male comes in and orders just a beer, it's a telltale sign that they're there at the time of night in a hotel lobby nightclub by themselves because they want to have a good time, but they don't really know where else to go. They also stick around the bar and don't really mingle. Either that or they kick crap, but that doesn't really happen all that much. I always have some sympathy for this kind of figure because I see that they're looking for contact, but maybe can't really afford it. So, take a shot with them on the house seems to cheer them up a bit, and they stick around after the lights turn on up until the point we have to bonjour them away. I don't know why. This one was impossible for me to read. Sorry, completely unrelated to the story. But there were just some things that I didn't understand, just phrasing-wise. Basically, Opie's answer is like, the people going through it are just, lonely single males who don't know how to connect with people, so they come to the bar thinking that's where you do it, but not knowing how. Also, what does it mean to bonjour someone away? Is that a thing? That's just hello. Next story. Lady came in saying she was a teacher. She said she was waiting for her 3 students that just graduated, adults. So she said she wanted to buy them drinks before they came in. She orders 3 shots of vodka neat. I poured and lined up the shots for her and told her the price, and she gives me the card. I turn my back to her to charge her and ask if she needed chaser or anything. As I was using the register with my back to her, she didn't answer. And all I heard was 3 glasses slam on the bar in a row. I turn around to give her the card and all back, and she looks at me and just says, "I'm really nervous." I let her know it's okay, and we had a little laugh, and she went to go sit and wait. Next story. From Central Belt, Scotland, when we see people drinking a Buckfast tonic wine, it's a fortified red wine. Over 90% of the Buckfast Abbey wine goes to this area. It's cheap, high alcohol with caffeine, and it seems to lead to a nasty kind of drunk. Where I grew up, there was a lot of broken green glass from the smashed Bucky bottles. If you see someone swigging from a bottle of Bucky, it's best to stay away. Some of the worst pubs would sell it by the glass/measure/optic. I always took it as the sign of a rough bar. Next story. Not a bartender, but I was pretty introverted in college and into my 20s. I'd go to the club with my friends who were a lot more outgoing. We'd usually drink some beers and eventually they'd chat up some girls and hit the dance floor. I did not have that kind of game, and always ended up depressed in the corner. That's when I started ordering 3 Wiseman shots and hopped on the express to Blackout City. Stopped going to the club after a while. Next story. Not a customer, but a fellow employee from the bar/restaurant I used to work at. He was a true alcoholic who couldn't make it through a shift without his hands starting to shake. We were both closers on Sunday nights, and I had to deal with him where he would ring up his drink and pay for it through a regular table to not draw attention. He would drink a Long Island iced tea, but served in a water glass, like the 20-ounce ones. Heavy pour, basically to the top with booze, then a splash of Sprite instead of Coke and light ice. The Sprite was to make it look like a water instead of a regular Long Island. Next story. Employee of mine used to work in a hotel bar. He said there was a guy that came in and ordered something like a straight martini. He explained it was just 2 to 3 shots of vodka, no ice shaking, no vermouth. Do you understand? I will order it that way, and that's what you'll make. He made the drink, guy tipped very well, and that went on for a couple of days. One guy, the guy comes in with his wife and they're dressed for dinner. She has a couple of glasses of wine, he has a couple of his special martinis. They go out to dinner and return a couple hours later. Honey, it's early, let's go get a nightcap. You guessed it, more martinis. Well, this thread wasn't quite as depressing as I was expecting it to be. That being said, if you or anyone you know is struggling with alcoholism, I am wishing you the best. As some people said in this thread, it really is just a poison when abused. Drink responsibly, everybody. Don't drink and drive. And, just be kind to each other. Anyway, for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.